I speak before your feet touch the ground and before fear finds your thoughts. I am the voice that calls you out of confusion and into clarity. I set two paths before you every morning, and today I draw you toward the one that keeps you safe, steady, and rooted in my truth. Listen closely, because the way you choose now shapes the peace you will walk in all day. I am not distant from your steps. I watch where you place your trust, where you rest your mind, and where you plant your heart. Walk with me, and you will not stumble. Turn from what corrodes your soul, and you will rise like a tree fed by living water. I call you blessed not because the world applauds you, but because you listen when I whisper direction into your spirit. I watch how you begin your mornings, because beginnings reveal loyalties. When you refuse the counsel that pulls you away from me, when you do not linger where mockery dulls reverence, when you turn your face from paths that normalize what poisons the soul, you are not missing out, you are being preserved. I see every quiet decision you make that no one praises. I see when you choose restraint over impulse, wisdom over noise, truth over convenience. These choices anchor you even when storms rise. You are not designed to drift. I formed you to be planted. When you separate from what drains you, I draw you into what strengthens you. Stability does not come from controlling circumstances, but from aligning your inner life with my instruction. I give you my word not as a burden, but as nourishment. When you meditate on what I have spoken, you are not repeating empty words, you are allowing my voice to recalibrate your thinking. Day and night, when you return to what I have said, your mind is cleansed of confusion and your spirit is steadied against fear. I do not rush growth, I establish roots before I reveal fruit. When you stay near me, when you delight in what I delight in, you begin to draw life from a source that does not dry up. Others may panic when conditions change, but you will remain steady because your supply is not dependent on seasons. I cause you to flourish in ways that are not immediately visible. I strengthen your character, sharpen your discernment, and guard your heart from decay. What I plant, I sustain. There is safety in distance from corruption. Not every voice deserves your attention. Not every opinion carries wisdom. I warn you not to walk in counsel that exalts pride, justifies harm, or dismisses truth. When you stand apart from what deforms the soul, you are not isolating yourself, you are positioning yourself. I shape your steps so that you do not absorb what weakens you. The environment you choose will either nourish your calling or erode it. I teach you to recognize the difference. I see how easily distraction tries to pull you from stillness. I know the pressure to conform, to blend in, to remain silent when conviction stirs within you. Yet I tell you that endurance is born in obedience. When you resist the patterns that lead to emptiness, you discover a deeper fullness. I do not ask you to reject others, I ask you to refuse alignment with what destroys peace. Love does not require agreement with what is false. Wisdom does not require silence in the face of decay. You wonder why some efforts collapse while others endure. I tell you plainly that what is rooted in me remains. What grows apart from me is easily scattered. I am attentive to what you cultivate in secret. When you return to my word consistently, when you allow it to shape your reactions and refine your desires, you are being transformed steadily, not superficially. This is how resilience forms. This is how clarity emerges. I do not promise an absence of challenge, but I promise steadiness within it. When your delight is in my truth, you are not tossed by every opinion. You are not shaken by every accusation. You learn to weigh matters with discernment rather than impulse. I guide your steps so that you do not wander into needless harm. Even when pressure surrounds you, you stand because your foundation holds. I place you near living water so that renewal is continual, not occasional. When you draw from me, your strength is replenished. Your patience deepens, your vision sharpens. Fruit appears in its time, not forced, not premature, but healthy and lasting. Others will notice the consistency in your life, the quiet confidence, the calm in uncertainty. They will see that what you produce carries weight because it is sustained by truth. I contrast this stability with the emptiness of those who reject instruction, not to condemn, but to warn. A life untethered from wisdom scatters easily. When choices are driven by impulse and pride, there is no anchor when trials arise. I do not desire this for you. I call you to a better way, one where your actions are guided by purpose rather than reaction. I teach you to pause, to listen, to discern before you step. I know the temptation to rush, to follow crowds, to measure success by noise and speed. Yet I tell you that endurance outlasts excitement. What you build with me will not collapse under scrutiny. I am shaping you into someone who does not wither under pressure. Your leaf does not fade because your source does not fail. When others grow weary, you remain nourished. I am attentive to the path you choose daily, not just in grand decisions but in small alignments. Each moment of obedience strengthens your root system. Each refusal to entertain what corrupts your spirit protects your peace. I do not overlook these moments. I establish you quietly, firmly, patiently. This is how safety is formed. This is how your way prospers without striving. I stand watch over the direction of your life. I know the intentions behind each step. When you remain in my instruction, I guard you from paths that lead to loss. I teach you to recognize when something appears appealing but carries hidden decay. Discernment is a gift I cultivate in those who stay close to me. You learn not only what to choose but what to avoid. I do not measure you by comparison but by faithfulness. When you align with my truth, your life carries a weight that shallow pursuits cannot imitate. I see the fruit forming long before it appears. I know the season appointed for its unveiling. Until then, remain planted, remain attentive, remain receptive. The way you walk today shapes the peace you inhabit, the strength you carry, the legacy you build, and the stability you pass on to those who watch how you choose, how you listen, how you trust, how you remain rooted when the wind presses hard against you, and still you stand drawing life quietly from depth, where I continue to supply without interruption. I draw you toward my truth not to restrict you, but to align you. When you delight in what I speak, your inner world begins to settle into order. Confusion loses its grip when my word becomes your reference point. Each morning, before decisions stack up and voices compete for your attention, I invite you to listen to what I have already declared. My truth does not change with circumstances, and when you anchor yourself in it, your choices gain clarity. You stop reacting and begin discerning. You stop drifting and begin walking with intention. I know how many decisions wait for you every day, how quickly small choices accumulate into outcomes you never planned. That is why I call you to delight in my instruction, not merely acknowledge it. Delight means you return to it willingly. You weigh your thoughts against it. You allow it to challenge impulses that feel urgent but lead nowhere. When my truth becomes your delight, obedience is no longer forced. It becomes natural because alignment brings peace. I speak to guide your steps, not just your beliefs. My word is living, shaping how you respond to pressure, how you treat others, how you manage time, how you guard your heart. When you meditate on what I say, you are not escaping reality. You are learning how to navigate it safely. I show you where to slow down and where to move forward. I reveal motives beneath actions. I correct direction before damage occurs. You wonder why some paths feel heavy even when they look successful. I tell you it is because truth has been neglected. When delight shifts away from my instruction, priorities distort. What once felt clear becomes exhausting. But when you return to my word daily, alignment is restored. Decisions begin to flow from wisdom rather than fear. You recognize when to say no without guilt and when to say yes without hesitation. I do not overwhelm you with complexity. I give you truth that stabilizes. When you sit with what I have spoken, when you allow it to settle into your thinking, it begins to guard you. It filters what enters your mind. It exposes lies that dress themselves as opportunity. I protect you not by removing all risk, but by sharpening your discernment. My truth becomes a lamp, revealing where each step will land. You are safest when your delight is in me, not because danger disappears, but because your decisions are no longer careless. I teach you to see beyond the immediate. I train your heart to value what lasts. When you delight in my word day and night, you are not obsessed, you are grounded. Your reactions slow, your confidence deepens. You stop being easily provoked or easily persuaded. I know the pull of distraction, I see how quickly attention fragments. Yet I call you back gently, repeatedly, because every time you return, alignment strengthens. My truth realigns your desires. What once tempted you loses appeal. What once felt insignificant gains weight. You begin to recognize protection not as restriction, but as wisdom in motion. When you align your daily decisions with what I have spoken, you experience consistency. You are not one person in private and another in public. Integrity forms naturally when truth governs choices. I do not demand perfection, I cultivate faithfulness. Each time you choose according to my instruction, even when it costs convenience, you are being covered. I shield you from consequences you never see because obedience redirects you quietly. I know how easily fear disguises itself as logic. I know how often pressure demands immediate answers. That is why I urge you to delight in my word before urgency arises. Preparation happens in stillness. When you have stored truth within you, it surfaces when needed. You respond with wisdom instead of panic. You speak with clarity instead of defensiveness. My truth steadies your voice. I watch how delight changes posture. When my instruction becomes your joy, humility grows. You become teachable rather than rigid. You listen more carefully. You correct course sooner. Pride loosens its grip. I guide those who remain attentive. I resist those who insist on their own way. Alignment keeps you within reach of my protection. I am not silent about your path. I speak through my word consistently, faithfully. When you delight in it, you begin to recognize patterns. You see which choices lead to peace and which to unrest. This awareness sharpens over time. Wisdom accumulates quietly. You become less impressed by surface appearances and more attentive to underlying truth. I do not rush you through growth. Alignment unfolds gradually. Each day you choose my truth, you are being adjusted slightly, steadily. Your habits change, your values refine, your boundaries strengthen. Protection is often invisible because it operates through prevention. I steer you away before harm develops. I close doors you were about to walk through unknowingly. I know the satisfaction of control tempts you. Yet I remind you that alignment brings greater security than control ever could. When you trust my instruction, you release the burden of having to predict every outcome. You learn to move forward without anxiety. You accept correction without resentment. Delight softens resistance. I am attentive to what captures your attention. When you delight in shapes what you become. When you delight in my truth, your inner life is nourished. Peace settles. Strength increases. Discernment sharpens. You are not easily manipulated. You are not easily discouraged. My word builds resilience into your spirit. I guide you through ordinary moments, not just crises. Alignment affects conversations, routines, habits. When you consult my truth regularly, even mundane choices carry wisdom. You avoid unnecessary conflict. You recognize when silence is safer than speech. You discern when persistence is required and when release is wiser. I know how subtle compromise begins. It often starts with neglect. When my word becomes optional, alignment weakens. But when delight draws you back consistently, correction is gentle. I do not condemn, I realign. I restore clarity. I steady your footing again. I protect those who remain attentive, but because they are flawless, but because they are responsive. Delight keeps your heart open. You are quick to listen, quick to adjust. My truth keeps you within safe boundaries even as you move forward boldly. Confidence grows when direction is clear. I am shaping your decision-making. I am training your instincts. Over time, alignment becomes instinctive. You recognize when something feels wrong even if it looks appealing. You pause before committing. You seek understanding rather than validation. My truth becomes woven into how you think. I am not distant from your daily life. I am present in every choice you submit to my instruction. When you delight in my word, you invite my guidance into each step. Protection flows through alignment. Safety unfolds through wisdom. You are not shielded by ignorance, but by understanding. I see how delight transforms obedience into joy. When you trust my truth, obedience no longer feels like loss. It feels like security. You recognize that what I withhold protects you. What I permit strengthens you. Alignment clarifies purpose. I know the temptation to rush ahead of understanding. Yet I remind you that waiting with my word is never wasted. Alignment formed in patience prevents regret. You gain foresight. You learn to evaluate outcomes before committing. My truth trains your vision. I am guarding you through instruction. I am leading you through understanding. Each time you choose to delight in my word, you step further into alignment. Your path becomes clearer. Your footing becomes firmer. Your confidence rests not in outcomes, but in guidance. I continue speaking because alignment requires attentiveness. I invite you daily, morning by morning, to return to what I have said. As you delight, your decisions reflect wisdom. Your direction reflects purpose. Your steps remain guarded as you move forward steadily, thoughtfully, securely, shaped by truth that continues to guide every choice, every response, every moment where you listen before you act, and allow my instruction to order your way without force or fear.